Good evening and welcome back to my channel. You're probably asking, how did I get the opportunity to travel to Ethiopia? Well, to answer that question, when I was a master's student at the Dalhousie Agricultural Campus in Nova Scotia, I had the opportunity to participate in the Cultivate program. And Cultivate is a entrepreneurial extracurricular activity that is offered to Dalhousie students to give them a place to generate business ideas and to determine if they could potentially be profitable by having access to mentors, guest speakers, many networking opportunities, and great resources on the internet. For myself and one of my friends, we were part of this club. We were given an option from a list to look at wastage from apple cider production. We went to some local cideries and collected some samples, and then we did some chemical analysis and we looked at some of the physical properties of this product to try to determine what might be suitable to do for a business idea. We eventually came up with making dog and horse pet food treats. And we registered our business, went to a farm market and sold our product. And although being full-time master's students, we didn't have a lot of extra time to really dedicate to developing it further as a business. We really enjoyed the experience to be able to experiment with different ideas and to see what worked and what didn't work. So it was a great learning experience for both of us. We do highly recommend the program to other students because there is a lot of great potential there to take any kind of business idea that might be of interest to students and to really take it as far as you can. But when I applied for this trip to go to Ethiopia, it was part of a one-week conference, and it was all in partnership through a project, and there's a long abbreviation, but it refers to the Agricultural Transformation Through Stronger Vocational Education, or ATSVE. I was very fortunate to be selected to attend this conference in the spring of 2017 to speak about my experience being a part of the Cultivate program and developing a small business from being involved with this club. Before you travel abroad, you need to make sure that your vaccinations are up to date. So I had 5 vaccines prior to my travels, and those included vaccines for polio, typhoid fever, hepatitis A, influenza, and meningococcal bacteria. You will also need to make sure that you obtain a travel visa to visit Ethiopia prior to your departure. And when I was attending through Dalhousie, they did a great job at being able to organize all of this for me. I traveled to Ethiopia with 2 other graduate students, as well as a few staff members from the school. I first flew into Addis Ababa. We drove to Adema, which is a city where the conference was taking place, and we were there for 3 days for the main conference period, where we got to take in presentations and walk around and see displays of different agricultural types of work that were going on. And there's a lot of vegetable production, which I was really glad to see because I think vegetables are going to be a really important part of the future to feed our world. During the workshop with the Ethiopians, they had the opportunity to get into small groups and brainstorm on large pieces of white paper with markers as to some of the issues they may be having within the agriculture industry in Ethiopia And then they were able to use the Cultivates framework through the business model canvas to identify some of the solutions to these problems. After the Ethiopians had a chance to work through the business model canvas and to come up with solutions to some of these agricultural problems that they face, it gave them an opportunity to then present their problem and the possible solutions to the rest of the group. And that was a really great experience to be able to watch them share their insight and be able to generate discussion. And I'm just going to mention a little bit more on a general scope, but to just give a bit of a context to some of the topics that we discussed. And those included things such as looking to reduce food waste. And I think this is a really important topic, and it applies to many parts of the world, not just Ethiopia, because having as much food waste as we do in the world definitely does not help sustain the planet. And another topic is looking at ways to produce food more sustainably, trying to be more environmentally friendly. And another topic is looking at ways to maximize efficiency of existing land, and that includes doing more vertical gardening. And then another example is looking to conserve resources, whether that be water, fertilizer, other inputs into crop production, and even something as simple as having access to capital, because we know in order to start a lot of agricultural businesses, that can be a major limitation in order to get something initiated. And then a really important topic is ways to strengthen global partnerships. And as we know, Ethiopia has a lot of wonderful commodities, including coffee, amongst a number of others. And therefore, there's great potential to be able to strengthen those ties with other parts of the world. Another important topic is just looking at diversifying what types of crops that you're growing, because we know with climate change, it's showing us increasingly more drastic weather events with drought-like conditions and flooding conditions and a lot of infrequent weather events. We're seeing more movement of different animals and insects to different places that they would not normally be adapted to, as well as different plants and weed species moving a lot more. And we want to be able to have a better grasp of ways that we can get this under control, because it continues to be a very serious problem, and it's going to have continually more problems in the future if we don't look at ways to become more sustainable in all of our practices. Toward the end of the trip, we then traveled back to Addis Ababa, and I had a very wonderful experience. It was a really great opportunity to see the landscape of the country and to see some areas that were better developed, including some beautiful hotels and then some that were not as well developed as it would be any place in the world. You'll see a little bit of that anywhere you go. The cars were bumper to bumper in the city areas, and they honked their horns regularly. I got to see some cows just moving around along some side roads, even to see a tortoise that just happened to be walking along, so that was really cool to take in from a distance. We talk a little bit about the food culture with Ethiopia. One of their main staple foods is known as injera, which is a sour fermented flatbread, and it is an acquired taste, although it is very common there. They eat it at every meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and it actually replaces utensils, so they use it to scoop up other types of curries and sauces and soup dishes, so that was quite interesting. And it's actually made from teff flour, which is very healthy and can actually be purchased around here at a lot of local bulk food stores, such as Bulk Burn, and it's very nice to use in baking breads. And so if you do get the opportunity to buy some, I highly recommend doing some baking with it. Although with injera specifically, this type of bread has a very interesting texture. It's got like a bubbly surface and it almost resembles a sponge, as you can see in some pictures here. One other interesting food I got to try in Ethiopia was their smoothies, and they're not like your typical smoothie. This one was quite visually appealing because it had two distinctive layers within the same cup. And so the bottom layer was actually with avocado and then the top layer was mango. So that was pretty good, and they actually tasted quite nice. The third food item I mention is coffee. Coffee is very big in Ethiopia, and it's actually the origin of coffee. They produce very strong tasting coffee from their coffee beans, and they do have coffee roasting events. When I was at one of the hotels, I actually got to watch someone roasting the beans, and that was a really cool experience. And they serve the coffee to you in these tiny porcelain cups. These particular ones have these designs along the edges. I did notice a lot of the North Americans at the conference would tend to add a lot of cream and sugar to make a coffee more palatable, although I was able to drink it because I do like strong coffee, and I was able to bring a few bags of coffee back with me as a gift, and that was really nice as well. And just to mention some of the clothing and jewelries, boutiques and shops that you can purchase things to bring back with you. As you can see in back here, there's a cloth dress with some really pretty fabrics and gold threads throughout the dress. And this is a bangle that I purchased in Ethiopia, and it's beautiful and intricate in the design and the colors. As we know, with the COVID pandemic, it is very easy to take for granted opportunities to travel, to see other parts of the world, and to learn about other cultures and agricultural practices in different parts of the world. So I highly recommend that if you do get the opportunity to go abroad, whether that be through a project, an exchange program, I highly recommend you take it. And so if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. We'll see you in the next video. Bye friends.